Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psychreg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Berney Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back, Richard. Today, we're going to talk about college students, but not just about college students in general. We're going to talk about distress and well-being in college students.
This article was really interesting. When I first saw it, I thought, well, what is this about, distress and well-being? But as I started to read it, I thought, this is a fascinating approach to these two topics. Well, as it turns out, to these two topics.
Right.
But what struck me initially was when I read that college students have higher rates of distress than the general population. I would not have predicted that. I mean, you and I both teach in colleges.
Right.
And I don't think of college students as being any more or less distressed or stressed than anybody else.
Yeah.
We understand that they have papers to write and exams to study for and schedules to keep up with and the rest, but I never translated that into they have higher levels of stress, because I was thinking they also have this wonderful campus and 20 or 30,000 people their same age to run around with. Situation that they'll never have once they leave.
Not again.
You know? And so I hadn't thought about college students as being more stressed or having more distress than the general population.
Right. So today we're going to talk about a column or a blog post from our blog, Psychreg.org, written by Dr. Abby Brooker, who not only has her doctorate in psychology, but she's also has some certificates in university teaching and everything. But she's particularly interested in this population of folks that are university or college-based students.
Right.
And like you said, I like the argument that wellness or well-being and distress are maybe two different things.
That's right.
We tend to put them on the same spectrum, but maybe they're two different things.
Right. We tend to think of people who are people who feel good wouldn't be distressed, and vice versa. People who are distressed, and well-being may not be the opposite end of that spectrum.
Right.
Okay. And that what she's proposing in this article is that we look at them as two different things, and we treat them separately. Because what the argument that she's making is that if you just set up a campuses have worked diligently over the last 10 or 15, 20 years to build recreation centers and student unions and places and the counseling centers. We interviewed Kip from Ohio State, who runs one of these large and very well done counseling centers to provide services to students who need it. Right. So we set up these systems to address distress, and many people make the assumption that if we're doing that, then well-being will follow. Right. They may be two different things, and that's what I like about her approach.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, because I was equally impressed with the idea, with the notion of these being two different things. Right. But I'm not sure why I was necessarily surprised, because we see it in other areas as well. You can be unwell physically, but still eat very healthily. It's like, I eat vegetables every day. I do this, I do that, but can still be very sickly. Right. And so the two things do not necessarily. It means that there's a lot more spectrums, many more continua. Oh, I like so many of these fancy words as it relates to all these different things.
Right, because I'm trying to articulate this correctly. You could have a sense of well-being, but still be distressed. Right. You could be physically healthy. I'm running, I'm exercising, I'm eating properly, getting enough sleep, doing okay, but could be distressed, feel distressed about something or many things.
Right. Well, and using that perfect example, you have people who who put their body in significant distress by overexercising, by
True.
too restrictive of a diet, by sleeping too much.
Right.
You can do some of these healthy, quote unquote healthy things to excess, and even though we would anticipate that to result in some wellness, we end up creating more distress.
And you wonder about. So the other thing she's saying in this article is that you separate the two, you address these needs for students.
Right.
She said, but and she's absolutely right about this. If faculty and staff are distressed, dealing with the students is only part of the problem. So she also talks about an ecological, a climate, an environment that is mindful of well-being and distress.
Right.
And you have students, and I know this happens. It happens especially in larger universities, where you can have a student who's struggling with some issue. They go into an office and they encounter a staff that is either demoralized or overworked or understaffed or and the students are not getting the help that they need.
Right.
And so,
absolutely.
If you're not addressing the everybody in the building, you're not going to achieve your goals just by dealing with the students.
Absolutely. Yeah, it reminds me of a number of years back when we were both working for a local university here in town that, it's a long story that we won't go into for Dr.
Because
Marshall's
of my well-being.
well-being. But it was a very challenging time because that was a situation where overall, everyone was distressed because they were looking to close the university and shift things around, and so they were forcing students in one direction, forcing faculty in a different direction, and it was creating a lot of distress. But even those students who were almost done, so they, it really didn't affect them all that much. The distressing environment caused them distress.
It took a toll on everybody.
Yeah.
People were ending up in hospital.
Yeah.
Taking time off, taking the summer off just for mental health reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is definitely, again, you didn't really think about it before, but these are really two different things.
Right.
They can overlap. Certainly.
Yes. There is overlap. Right.
But they are, perhaps two different things.
Now I'm going to extrapolate a little bit.
Well, extrapolate away.
Okay. As I read this was about college students.
Right.
I was thinking about K-12 education.
Oh, boy.
What we have done since No Child Left Behind is we have intentionally created distress. By introducing high-stakes testing. We have distressed students, families, teachers, administrators with this emphasis on high-stakes test.
Right.
We have purposely created exactly what she said we shouldn't do.
Are you trying to suggest that when a student a third grade student walks into his classroom for the first time at orientation, and there are posters on the wall about the end of year exams that will indicate whether or not that child will go to fourth grade or not, you're saying that that's going to create distress? Richard.
Well, I wouldn't. Or the high school student who has been struggling, wants to get a high school diploma, would like to get a job as a plumber or a mechanic and needs a high school diploma for employment
Or go
purposes.
to the military.
Or go into the military.
Right.
And they know that at the end of 10th grade, they have to pass this test. And if they can't pass it, they're not going to get a high school diploma, no matter how well they do in their courses, no matter how much work they complete, no matter how many days of school they attend. If they don't pass that test in 10th grade, they're not going to get a regular high school diploma.
Yeah.
So we have intentionally created distress, and we wonder why the system is coming apart. And if you read this article and apply it to K-12 instead of college, you have created just the opposite of what she's talking about.
The opposite of what she says needs to happen.
We should be doing. She's saying we have to create all these circumstances for students, but we also have to do it for staff and faculty.
Right.
Everybody in the building has to have it. We've done just the opposite. We've put everybody under an enormous amount of distress, and we expect the system to work, and it can't.
Yeah. I didn't know you were going to go in that direction, because that's a can of worms that's just a lot to talk about.
Oh, I could.
Did you read that article this morning about Florida schools and
Schools of Hope.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. I will be talking about
Dr.
that.
Diane Ravitch writes a lot about these K-12 educational issues, and we're big fans.
Did she weigh in on Schools of Hope?
She did, I think. So, but
that's probably gonna.
We won't go in that direction yet. We'll save that for another podcast. How about that? Is that okay? Is that okay?
All right.
You want to talk about it then?
No.
I think you do, but
No.
All right.
I'm gonna zip it. As my daughter would say, zip it.
Oh, good gosh.
Okay.
So, all right.
But I'm glad you brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
Opens up a whole new vista.
I was gonna say can of worms, but you say vista.
Panoramic.
So
Can't wait.
Well, then that's it for today, right?
Okay.
Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.